Losing four major contributors Monday, right tackle Morgan Moses, cornerback DJ Reed, defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw, and linebacker Hassan Reddick. Meanwhile, former Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers could have a deal in place by today with the Steelers. The Rams will reportedly release Cooper Kupp if no trade is made. The news comes a day after the Rams announced that they agreed to sign six-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Devontae Adams on a 2-year deal. Sam Darnold has signed a 3-year contract with the Seahawks worth $100.5 million. They added the quarterback just 3 days after agreeing to trade Geno Smith to the Raiders. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo and save with Progressive.
That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Hey, Green Gobbler here. So you've got a clogged drain in your bathroom. Water in the sink's overstaying its welcome. You're spitting today's toothpaste on top of yesterday's toothpaste. You hope that it go away. Yeah, clogs don't just go away. I make them go away. I'm Green Gobbler, the only clog dissolver you need. I'm bleach-free, safe for your pipes, and I work. Guaranteed or your money back. Because I never met a clog that was going to unclog itself. Green Gobbler. Let the gobbler get it.
I had the worst dream last night. You were in a car crash, and the kids and I were on our own. We had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it anymore.
That's awful, hon.
My brother was saying he got life insurance from Ethos. With Ethos, it only took 10 minutes, and he got $2 million in coverage for around $2 a day. It's all online. No medical exam. He just answered a few health questions right from his house.
Ethos, here we come.
Visit GetEthos.com. That's GetEthos.com.
Sample rate is a 10-year term life policy for 35-year-old healthy, non-smoking male. Billed monthly.
How many SportsGrid listeners does it take to change a light bulb?
It takes two.
One to change the light bulb, and one to see if our mobile app can provide the same amount of light. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
The free agency frenzy around the National Football League continues on this Tuesday, live right here on Football Full Circle. It is FFC all across the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM, channel 159. He is the mastermind of the pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. If you wanted every update from NFL free agency, all the moves, maneuvers, even blockbuster trades that we have last seen in the 48 hours since free agency got underway, really just about 24 hours, I guess you could say, you have come to the right place. We are live right here on FFC up until 1 p.m. Eastern Time. The quarterback carousel all around the NFL, the biggest names and their new homes, and some of those biggest acquisitions that we have seen in this free agency frenzy in the NFL. You got the right place. It's Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens to break it all down.
Yeah, and this is, again, we see some quality signings for some of these teams, marquee quarterbacks, and what that means potentially in terms of the win-loss totals or even championship odds, right? We've seen the movement. But what about the quarterbacks that are still on the market, right? You know, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. Where do those quarterbacks go? Do they help teams like Pittsburgh and New York, the Giants I'm talking about, respectively? We'll see. But at the end of the day, Ben, certain teams have really, I want to say, jockeyed and really moved up to really solidify their situation in terms of their respective conferences. We saw Tampa Bay re-sign Chris Godwin. That helps them, and they're the front runners in the NFC South. But for others, there's still question marks, especially at the quarterback position, and that'll make or break these teams, not just leading into the NFL draft, but more importantly, week one of the NFL season.
It is the most important position in football, maybe in all of sports. It is the QB spot. It's where we're about to start our free agency tracker and breakdown here on FFC. But Lisi Guy, I think just to stress your point, no move made yesterday guarantees X amount of wins, guarantees a team to be 3 or 4 wins better than they were a season ago. We know that. You didn't win anything yesterday in terms of an actual result in a football game, but you are making all of these signings, these acquisitions, these maneuvers to bolster your roster, to put the pieces in place to have success in the 2025 NFL season and beyond. So with that in mind, of course, Joe, the quarterback position is front and center. And the biggest name in terms of the free agent quarterback market, Sam Darnold, is now with the Seattle Seahawks, signing a 3-year, $100.5 million deal, $55 million guaranteed, $33.5 AAV. That is annual average value. After the Seahawks had an interesting weekend, clearing house and making a ton of sweeping changes, they deal Geno Smith to Las Vegas. They trade DK Metcalf to Pittsburgh. They bring in Sam Darnold to try to provide that stable floor for this restructuring, if you will, in the Pacific Northwest. Joe, what did you think of the move the Seahawks made in signing Sammy D?
I think it's great for Sam Darnold, the player, because, knowing how he went out in back-to-back losses against Detroit and LA, we didn't think that he could potentially maybe get such a big number, 30, 40 million plus, and to have 3 years, $100 million is a perfect fit with, I want to say, a team which it doesn't have huge expectations. And I say that because, again, Minnesota, right, at the end of the regular season last year, was vying for a number 1 seed and was potentially looked at as a Super Bowl contender, and they bow out. And now you look at Seattle, a 10-win football team. They don't make the playoffs. They ship off their best players, Geno Smith and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, that are going to be out there and no longer on the sidelines for 2025. And you bring in a quarterback that really could just walk right in, play his game, and, if they go 8-9, nobody's going to care, right? I mean, the organization will hope to get to potentially a playoff spot, but let's be realistic. Is that going to happen without DK and star talent outside of JSN and Zach Charbonnet there with Kenneth Walker? I mean, this team is always under the radar. It's in a smaller media market, so it's a great fit for Sam Darnold. For the Seattle Seahawks, I just don't understand the vision. I don't know where they're going as an organization. Are they a 5-wide, spread it out type of offense? Or is this an offense that wants to ground and pound and win games 17-13? I have no idea, Ben.
Yeah, Joe, it is interesting, right? The Seahawks have been a consistently successful team from Pete Carroll and now year number 1 under Mike McDonald. We don't see them as a team that bottoms out, that loses 14, 15 games, 12, 13 games a season. They were the only double-digit win team last year in the NFL to not make the playoffs. So where exactly is Seattle going with all of these changes, but now bringing in Sam Darnold? I do agree it's kind of this weird limbo area. But for Seattle, I do like the signing. Because, Joe, the question for me for Sam Darnold, the top name in the free agent quarterback market, which, of course, in itself is interesting, was where, we now know, Seattle, and how much? $33.5 million per year. Because Sam Darnold, who has been in the NFL now for 7 years, he's not some 37-year-old quarterback, despite the fact we have known about him for a very long time. 3rd overall pick by the Jets back in 2018. Of course, struggled in New York, kind of struggled in Carolina, made his way to San Francisco as a backup, came to Minnesota to provide some of that bridge gap experience, the veteran guidance to the young J.J. McCarthy. Was not expected, Joe, to be the full-time starter. Was certainly not expected once he became the full-time starter to lead Minnesota to 14 wins. But we had the great success of Sam Darnold, followed probably most notably by his 2 most disappointing performances in the 2 biggest games of the year for the Vikings. Regular season finale against Detroit, and of course that playoff game against the LA Rams, where we kind of all said, all right, maybe that's the true representation of Sam Darnold. A consistent quarterback, maybe not as bad as we once thought in New York, but probably not the guy to elevate the ceiling all that high for any given NFL franchise. I don't think he's expected to do that with the Seahawks. I think he's expected to be more of that consistent guy at the quarterback spot. And because of it, Joe, when he was performing at the level he did last year for the Vikes, was he going to make $40, $45, $50 million? I think being in that range of $30 to $35, $33.5 million per year is very fair for Sam Darnold, given where the salary cap is, quarterback salaries, and where they have been inflated to. I think it's a good move all around.
Yeah, it is. It's similar to what Baker Mayfield got with the extension with the Tampa Bay Bucks, right? $30 million, you get a veteran quarterback. As long as he plays well within the scheme with, above average talent, he could perform. I guess if I'm looking at it from the football aspect, He had the best wide receiver, or one of, in Justin Jefferson. He had a great number 2 in Jordan Addison, an above-average tight end in T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones that hit the ground running in Minnesota. Okay, you have somewhat similar talent, but you just shipped your best playmaker, DK Metcalf, and a secondary option in Tyler Lockett out the door. What does that lead? And he's not a mobile guy. We saw Geno against better competition get abused when that offensive line broke down. It's going to be a similar type of situation with Sam Darnold. You know where Sam Darnold is. So, again, for the money, great signing for Seattle. For Sam Darnold, perfect fit because, again, it's similar to what he had in Carolina and Minnesota. Under the radar, if he overexceeds expectations, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and Joe, I think the context is important, right? What exactly is Seattle hoping to accomplish? Of course, everybody in the building is going to say we're in the running for a Super Bowl, but is that realistic? I'm not so sure. So the acquisition of Sam Darnold probably helps the Seahawks franchise in their restructuring that we have seen. We know Sam Darnold under duress really struggled last year. That would be a key priority, of course, for the Seahawks. I just don't think really going back to Minnesota was a realistic option. It is J.J. McCarthy's show. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But some other big QB news on the other side of the break. Sam Darnold, once the 3rd overall pick for the Jets, now in Seattle. So who's the Jets' new quarterback? Justin Fields. Come on down. Next.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid, and we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin. He just gives that vibe. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Utah will become the first state to ban fluoride in public drinking water. This comes despite widespread opposition from dentists and national health organizations. Governor Spencer Cox said he would sign legislation that bars cities and communities from deciding whether to add the mineral to their water systems. The CDC says fluoride strengthens teeth and reduces cavities by replacing minerals lost during normal wear and tear. Utah lawmakers who pushed for a ban said putting fluoride in water was too expensive. New Jersey Transit and its rail engineers said Monday that they've tentatively agreed on a new labor contract averting a possible strike. NJ Transit President and CEO Chris Koluri and the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen's General Chairman Thomas Haas announced the deal in a joint statement. The union's rank and file are expected to vote next month on whether to ratify it. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with the Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
With Progressive, renters can save on protection for the things that make your place yours, even things that don't make sense to everyone.
People always wonder why I don't get rid of my guitar since I never play. But it's like, what if I actually end up taking lessons? Sure, I've had it for 8 years, but if I get rid of it, then what will my New Year's resolution be next January?
Exactly. So bundle your renters and auto and save with Progressive and protect the things that make sense to you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates and other insurers not available in all states or situations. Covered subject to policy terms and conditions.
There's something you should know and always remember. SportsGrid does not increase luck. We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck, go find a horseshoe. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. He is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. We continue our free agency frenzy here on FFC. Joe, some big quarterback news. We started with Sam Darnold right before the break. We mentioned Justin Fields. Signs with the New York Jets on a 2-year, $40 million deal, $30 million guaranteed up front. Fields, after completing 4 years in the NFL, his first 3 in Chicago, last year in Pittsburgh, started the first 6 games for the Steelers, went 4-2, now finds a new home with a new regime in New York. Joe, it's no secret. If you followed the SportsGrid network the last 3-4 years, everybody knows that you and me, we're pretty big Justin Fields guys. What do you like about this move that now has Fields more than likely the starting quarterback of the Jets?
Well, if you go back to the tapes, and I was one that said that the Jets would be better off selecting Justin Fields in the draft over Zach Wilson, I honestly believe that. I just think he was a better all-around quarterback. I even said that prior to Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields would have been a perfect fit with the New York Jets to pair him with Garrett Wilson. They went the old man route. It didn't work out, and now they signed Justin Fields to a $40 million contract with $30 million guaranteed. I've read the threads. And I've seen, and you know what's great about Jet fans is that when they got Aaron Rodgers, they were stamping their tickets for the Super Bowl. This is it, 10-1 shot, AFC champs, this, that, the other thing. And Aaron Rodgers was never a good fit in New York because it was all about Aaron Rodgers and not about the team chemistry, right? He ran out Robert Salah, didn't perform, got hurt, didn't put up numbers until after the fact, and it was his way or no way. You bring in now a team player that is a locker room guy, that is a mobile quarterback that can make plays outside the pocket if the offensive line breaks down. And all I've heard from numerous Jet fans online in the industry is that they're going to suck this year. Let me just say this. As a Dolphin fan, as backing, other teams and wanting to see other teams and hating the New York Jets as a fan, I'm telling you this from the gambling perspective. I think they're going to overexceed expectations. I think they have their quarterback of the future for the next 3 to 5 years. This is a perfect fit for this team. And I think Justin Fields potentially could be a star in terms of Aaron Glenn and that offensive staff. So I'm telling you this right now, 140-1 to win the Super Bowl. Just from the value perspective, that has weight. I'm not suggesting this team is a Super Bowl contender, but I'm going over their win total this year. I'm going even taking a ticket potentially for them to make the playoffs. I said it. I'll go down with Justin Fields. This is the perfect fit for him with young talent, players that he could grow with, and a young head coach. Perfect. I'm telling you, and Jet fans that sell it, that is the perfect MO and indicator to know I'm on the right side. When Jet fans hate something, they're never right.
Well, so listen, I think it's a great signing for New York. I think it's a great signing for this new regime, led by new head coach Aaron Glenn, new general manager Darren Muji. It is a deal that allows you to see what Justin Fields has. Is he a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL? There has been glimpses, there has been spurts, there has been success. There's been some downside as well, if we call it like it is. Last year in 6 starts, only threw for $160 plus twice. And when you think about what he did as a passer, just 5 touchdowns in 6 starts to only a single interception. But it's not just as a passer, 3 games with 55 yards on the ground and 5 rushing scores. You can incorporate a new offensive scheme to highlight what Justin Fields can do. Of course, he reunites with his college teammate at Ohio State, Garrett Wilson, very promising young wide receiver, offensive rookie of the year just a few years ago. Joe, he was thrilled by the news of this signing yesterday as well. If you think of what they did in Columbus, you don't think of Justin Fields as simply a runner. You think of him as one of the greatest passers we have ever seen in Big Ten football, and that's not hyperbole. But I will just follow up with this. I think it's going to be fascinating, Joe, to watch the Jets this year. A team the last 2 seasons, because of Aaron Rodgers, had the great weight of expectation. Expected to be a playoff team, expected to contend in the AFC, obviously came nowhere close to that. The expectations entering last year as compared to this year, the Jets have become such a notable team in the largest media market in this country. Do they kind of fade a little bit from thought because they should be a team expected to win 6.5, 7.5, something around there from a win total perspective, a team that has failed to make the playoffs 14 straight seasons, finishing with 5 wins or fewer half of those 14 years. And in that situation, I think it's a good move for the Jets, and I hope Justin Fields can thrive.
Yeah, and think about this, and I'll take the good, the bad, and the ugly. You're absolutely right about the productivity about Justin Fields, but let's take the player that he lost out to in Russell Wilson. Last 5-6 games in the regular season and the playoffs, Russell Wilson averaged 173 passing yards per game. It was absolutely pathetic. Was that an MO of Arthur Smith and that offensive play calling? Or was that really a testament to really what Justin Fields could do as a quarterback? We have to take the good and the bad and weigh it. He was in an offense in Eberflus and that offensive staff that didn't want to open it up. Right? He did have performances with the Bears where he threw for over 250 yards and multiple touchdowns, but it wasn't consistent week to week because they wanted to run the football. I actually believe Aaron Glenn and this staff believes in Justin Fields. That's all he's needed is an offensive staff and a team to believe in his athletic ability and to call a game plan around his strengths. You're telling me if Justin Fields throws for 200 yards in a game and rushes for 60 or 70 and they win 24-13, that's bad? I mean, again, we have to weigh it with wins and losses. The guy was 4-2 as a starter. 3 of those wins came on the road. That's what you want to see out of a quarterback. Can he win on the road? He did that. And again, that team wasn't dynamic. Pittsburgh wasn't elite. We know what their defense was. The Jets have the potential to be better this year. We'll see. But again, it's a young team now with the young quarterback. And that was the biggest problem with the New York Jets. They went the old route with a quarterback that thought he was the best, and he wasn't.
Right. And Joe, we'll see what they can do. Tanner Strand, is the new offensive coordinator for the New York Jets, coming over as an assistant from Detroit under Ben Johnson, and of course the familiarity with Aaron Glenn. There's a lot of talent offensively still for the New York Jets. Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, a lot to like there. I like the move for New York. Young and promising. We hope it pays off. More quarterback news, more free agency news. Next.
There's smart and there's not smart. Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Keep it here and win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1986, the NFL adopts instant replay by a vote of 23-4 with one abstention. The system was nixed in 1992 after much criticism by coaches like Mike Ditka of the Bears.
The replay stinks. First of all, the people that are in the booth are unqualified.
Replay was reintroduced in 1999. To this day, the system still isn't perfect. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
The University of Copenhagen's new AI machine learning model can understand the emotional state of animals just by listening to them. With 89.4% accuracy, it acoustically distinguishes positive and negative emotions from 7 different species, including cows, it's a beautiful game, pigs, stop stealing my slop, and even wild boars. Have you ever had one of those days? This breakthrough universal animal emotion translator, a game changer for barnyard quality of life. You're standing on my foot. Follow me at G Capalbo on X and stay tuned to The Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
The early line.
It's crazy that the teams that I am eyeing up for March Madness, I want them to be quick exits here so it sort of gets them off that front plate. Like if you want Auburn, what's worse for you, Ben? Go all the way through the SEC tournament, win it easily in advance? No, then they're going to become probably a favorite once again over Duke. That's not what you want here. No injuries, don't get embarrassed, head off to March Madness and get me a better price.
It's the early line with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go, there you are. Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you. So now you can get the winning edge anywhere. Even while the wife's talking to you. If you got an earbud. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle FFC. Of course, Joe, quarterback news is always going to be front and center in the free agency frenzy we have seen around the NFL. Sam Darnold is a Seahawk. Justin Fields now with the New York Jets. How about Daniel Jones, an intriguing quarterback in this market? Maybe not a $40 million a year man, but certainly somebody that might still have some upside in a backup or competitive role at the quarterback spot. Earlier today, Daniel Jones signs with the Indianapolis Colts on a 1-year, $14 million deal. There was some hope, Joe, that for Minnesota, they would be able to keep Daniel Jones, where he spent the tail end of last year in that QB room, kind of providing some of that guidance and experience for the young J.J. McCarthy. Now fully McCarthy's team in Minneapolis as Daniel Jones heads to Indianapolis. The Colts told us during Combine Week, Anthony Richardson is set to be in a quarterback battle this offseason to see if it can elevate his game. Well, we didn't know exactly who that quarterback would be. Now we do. Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson for the starting spot in Indy.
Yeah, I'll bet on Anthony Richardson 100 times over on 100. That Daniel Jones, he shouldn't even be playing for a high school team. Let's be honest. I mean, veteran backup, the guy's never stepped up in a big spot. The fact that multiple teams were issued or interested in Daniel Jones just shows you how much garbage GMs there are out there and why teams just never get over the hump. It's pathetic. Now, again, you get him on the cheap, $14 million. I mean, really? I just don't get it. You know, I just don't see. I would have went with any other quarterback that was available. Pickett, Kenny Pickett, Jameis Winston, you name it. And Garoppolo, I would have made anybody. Tyrod Taylor, you give me anybody that is in a backup role, I would have taken them over Daniel Jones. Can he make any type of run at the starting job? Only if Richardson gets hurt. But that's not the veteran that I want pushing Anthony Richardson. I would have went back to Joe Flacco in a heartbeat or Gardner Minshew, back with the old regime.
Well, we'll see, right? I don't mind the move for Daniel Jones. I still wonder what this means for AR. Joe, I would not be surprised, maybe unlike you, if Danny Dimes is that week 1 starter in Indy. I don't think there's a lot of confidence in the Colts right now that Anthony Richardson is that guy. If so, you don't start him in a quarterback competition against a QB to be named later that is now Daniel Jones. 1 year, $14 million investment in Jones also tells me that it was worth a pretty penny. It's not $40 million, it's only $14 million, but still, listen, the inconsistency that Anthony Richardson struggled with collegiately is still there, if not even more magnified at the NFL level. I'm not sure how long that is going to be able to be kept up in the National Football League. And Joe, the Colts feel as though they have a team that can contend in the AFC South. I like the move for Indianapolis, at the very least, to put pressure on Anthony Richardson, have a proven backup quarterback if things do go south. But again, I would not be surprised if Daniel Jones ends up the week 1 starter in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have an inconsistent quarterback in Richardson. He showed glimpses. I think the best game for me was when he beat the New York Jets, where he threw for like 272 and ran for 2 touchdowns in that, I believe it was like week 10 or week 11 performance on the road. And you hope to capture that throughout the regular season from start to finish. But yeah, I mean, is it a bad move for Indy? No, I'm just knowing and watching Daniel Jones and watching him perform week in and week out in the New York area. You know what you get. You're not getting lightning in a bottle. You're not getting, I don't believe a Sam Darnold type of season outside of Daniel Jones in that offense. Do they have playmakers? Sure, with Jonathan Taylor and Pittman and some of the young talent. But outside of that, again, it comes down to defense and can Daniel Jones limit turnovers if he is the week 1 starter. I don't know. That remains to be seen. Ben, the bottom line is this. Now that we're seeing teams go after Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, and how some of these teams have attacked Kenny Pickett, right? And I told you this, I know we've signed the elite, but knowing how teams like the Steelers are just, they're content. Oh, well, we'll get Rodgers. Oh, we'll get this guy. We'll get that guy. Whoever's available. Teams are starting to revert back to just, veteran backups, which all of a sudden this might be signaling the top of the market. You have your elite quarterbacks, but from a monetary perspective, I think we're going to start to go the other way.
Yeah, I would agree, Joe. And I also think with what is being shelled out in free agency gives us a sense of how these NFL clubs view the rookie quarterback class in 2025 as well. More on that next on Football Full Circle.
The Winning Edge. You've got it. But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us. But we're working on that. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. Men's college basketball on Monday. Wofford captured the Southern Conference Championship with a 92-85 victory over Furman. Troy is the Sun Belt champion. They beat Arkansas State 94-81. The ACC, Big East, Big 12, and Big 10 tournaments get underway today. NBA, the Nuggets beat the Thunder 140-127, 35 points, 18 rebounds for Nikola Jokic. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 25 points for the Thunder. He's a top contender for the league MVP, but says that's secondary to winning.
That's what it's all about. That's what it goes back to. And once you win, everything else comes, and I think it's just a product of that. So for me, I just focus on winning, focus on trying to be the best version I can be for this team, and wherever that takes me, it takes me.
Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo, and save with Progressive.
That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
One of life's greatest mysteries has finally been solved.
Who let the dogs out? Spruce.
It's Spruce, the new hard-working, worry-free weed and grass killer that's safe for use around people and pets. When used as directed, spray the leaves for visible results in just 1 hour and dead weeds in just 1 day. You spray, they play. Weeds die by the next day. Find Spruce wherever weed killers are sold.
Progressive knows if you have to choose between everyday life and your RV wins.
What, are you going to take the RV to the lake or clean out your closet?
RV wins!
Putting the dishes away or taking the RV camping?
RV wins!
Cleaning the fridge or taking a trip to the beach?
RV wins!
You might want to clean the fridge real quick because, mold.
We clean out the fridge, then take the RV out.
With Progressive, you can bundle your RV with your home or auto and save with a discount and spend more time enjoying those savings in your RV. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers not available in all states and situations.
You're listening to SportsGrid, spreading the winning edge far and wide. Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app. Face it, the winning edge is everywhere. Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Quarterback news continues here in this free agency frenzy. Lisi guy, we talked about some quarterback moves yesterday. Joshua Dobbs signs in New England. A little bit of veteran backup experience for Drake May. 2-year, $8 million deal. Jimmy G, as we shared yesterday on the show, back in Los Angeles. And then the Cleveland Browns made a trade with the Eagles. The Eagles trading Kenny Pickett to Cleveland. The Browns, in return, send back Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the QB, and a 5th-round pick. Kenny Pickett was great when he played this year for Philadelphia in the absence of the injured Jalen Hurts. Now has a shot to contend for that starting job in Cleveland. But you just sent me a tweet from a radio station in Cleveland. More for you, Cleveland. Let's make sure we get the actual call letters there. All things Cleveland sports, as they really follow everything. And citing a report from Zach Jackson, who is the Browns beat writer for The Athletic, that the Browns are going to try to make a run for Kirk Cousins and could end up with the quarterback via a trade by this weekend. Now, that would be a big-time move for the Browns in terms of bringing back Myles Garrett, making him the richest non-quarterback in NFL history, trying to make sure they can pay out the end of that Deshaun Watson deal. Probably have to foot a pretty hefty bill for Kirk Cousins as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, now you get, a definite upgrade at the quarterback position, right? It's going to be Kenny Pickett and potentially Kirk Cousins battling it out, which would be very good for the offense, right? At least you don't have Dorian Thompson-Robinson waiting in the wings. He's shipped off to the Eagles, right? That an experience you can't go into in terms of the regular season. You bring in 2 veteran guys. One was a first-round selection, Kenny Pickett, that never lived up to expectations with Pittsburgh. A backup. Now he has the opportunity to beat out Kirk Cousins. And now Stefanski, who got the most out of Flacco and some of those garbage quarterbacks, right, now has the ability to maybe coach up Pickett or Kirk Cousins to a 10-win football season. So is it, elite quarterback play? No, but it's solid enough to where you say, okay, our style is run the football. Let's try and get into games into the fourth quarter. Let's see if Myles Garrett and that defense can steal it. And they're right back into the mix to potentially be an 8 or a 9 win football team. And I think if you're a Browns fan, that's what you're hoping on. You didn't want a 3 or 4 win season. You wanted the ability to at least challenge 8 or 9 in the AFC North.
Yeah, I wonder, right? Because are we going to see Kirk Cousins at 37 years old look like he did last year in Atlanta off a ruptured Achilles at that stage of your career, dealing with that significant injury? We have seen 2 quarterbacks now go through it and look rather pedestrian, at least based on where they were in their careers previously. Aaron Rodgers, of course, the other to deal with that. Or are we going to see a Kirk Cousins player with a pretty talented Browns roster around him take a big step back to where we expect? I don't know, right? That is really the question if this trade is even to happen. How much does Cleveland have to give up in the potential of landing Kirk Cousins? What exactly does that all look like? I'm not sure, Joe. Based on the financials that would be done behind it, Atlanta would take on a good share of the money that Kirk Cousins is owed. But the Cleveland Browns on the hook for a lot of money for very little in return at this moment. I don't know exactly how that would go, but Joe, I thought the trade for Kenny Pickett was a clear indication from Cleveland they're not really set at a quarterback with that second overall pick. That Cam Ward's going to go 1, but the Browns are probably not in love with Shedeur Sanders or another QB option that early at that spot, second overall. If that is the case, trade out of it. Get the draft assets necessary if you can. But for me, Joe, I thought the acquisition of Kenny Pickett, even if this Kirk Cousins deal does not materialize, you're talking about Kenny Pickett very much in line to be a starting quarterback for the Browns come week number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now Kenny Pickett, if I had to draw the depth chart, even if Kirk Cousins is on there, would be the number 1. Again, you know, when it's a similar, and I keep going back to Baker Mayfield. It took Baker Mayfield multiple teams, even though he played well at Cleveland, didn't get enough credit. It wasn't until he moved on to Carolina, the LA Rams, and then Tampa that he found immediate success. So again, you know, and that's why I keep talking about these price tags for some of these teams. I think teams are starting to recognize it's better to try and get a veteran quarterback that has played in the league, and maybe we could coach him up to an acceptable or an above average level to where it gives us an option to potentially challenge for a division title and an AFC or an NFC playoff run. And that's what Kenny Pickett does. He's young enough. He's mobile, and now he's got, you know, game experience under his belt. It's certainly not Daniel Jones that has played and has started in the league multiple times and just never performed. Kenny Pickett's a raw asset that maybe you could get the most out of.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see, right? I still think there are some limitations to him as a starting quarterback.
Yeah,
you do wonder, though, right?
But I'm just saying, like, it could be like a Sam Darnold type of situation with the right talent and the right scheme and a coach of the year coach, not once, but twice. That's what, you know, that's what they're looking at.
That has made a lot work with very little by comparison at the quarterback spot. Yeah.
All these moves, Ben, right? Outside the pure contenders, Philly and Kansas City and Buffalo and the Ravens, these moves really make it very challenging to really assess the wins and losses. And if we're talking about the offseason market, we have no idea how these quarterbacks are going to perform, right? We only have the body of work up until this point. Even Sam Darnold, there's no guarantee that Sam Darnold is going to perform the way he did with Minnesota without Justin Jefferson and all those playmakers. So when you assess these teams on a win-loss or even championship odds perspective, you're really risking a lot more this year than you were maybe in years past.
Yeah, no doubt. And Joe's right. All of these moves are being made, especially at the quarterback spot, because you don't have a QB in place. If you did, at the most important position of football, you would be in a much better spot of success, playoff contention, conference championship contention, whatever it may be. Joe, all of these moves right now trying to help good teams or even teams that are slightly lackluster fill those necessary spots to get to that upper tier around the NFL. Outside of the quarterback position, some teams yesterday making a ton of moves including the New England Patriots. They pay Milton Williams, one of the best D linemen in terms of the free agency market, 4-year, $104 million deal. The Eagles knew he would command a lot. He gets a big deal from the Patriots. Carlton Davis makes his way to New England. Harold Landry III, earlier in the week, released by the Titans, reuniting with his former skipper in Mike Vrabel. They add Robert Spillane yesterday as well. The Patriots had the most cap space by far in the NFL this offseason. They're putting it to good use. A lot to fill for this New England team in Foxborough to get back to the level of success in the Belichick era for the Pats. Mike Vrabel trying to get that done.
Yeah, depth, right? Depth along multiple positions, offensively and defensively. And I think also that we have to keep in mind is that there's been rumors, at least up until this point, prior to draft day, where they might ship Joe Milton, who's gotten a lot of interest for some of these NFL teams, backing up Drake May, right? If that happens, now they're in a position to potentially really knock it out of the park come draft day in terms of late April. So again, are they going to be a contender this year? No. Are they going to get potentially over the 4 or 5 wins this season because of Vrabel and the talent now like Landry on the defensive side of the ball? They have that type of potential as long as they play sound football, and that's what the hope is with Mike Vrabel. They have the potential to be on a 2 or 3 year window where they're back into the playoffs making some noise.
Yeah, and Drake May, a big component of that as well, to take that step into his second year around the National Football League after a Pro Bowl rookie campaign. Yep, he was a Pro Bowler during 2024. More around free agency and the frenzy that we have seen in the NFL up next, live right here on Football Full Circle.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie. Just saying. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. Utah will become the first state to ban fluoride in public drinking water. This comes despite widespread opposition from dentists and national health organizations. Governor Spencer Cox said he would sign legislation that bars cities and communities from deciding whether to add the mineral to their water systems. The CDC says fluoride strengthens teeth and reduces cavities by replacing minerals lost during normal wear and tear. Utah lawmakers who pushed for a ban said putting fluoride in water was too expensive. New Jersey Transit and its rail engineers said Monday that they've tentatively agreed on a new labor contract averting a possible strike. NJ Transit President and CEO Chris Koluri and the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen's General Chairman Thomas Haas announced the deal in a joint statement. The union's rank and file are expected to vote next month on whether to ratify it. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
At Skechers, we put the S in comfort.
Wait. Skechers put the S in comfort?
Yes, comfort you have to feel to believe. Skechers, we put the S in comfort.
Let me try. Okay, I'm just stepping in and... Oh, wow. Skechers put the S in comfort.
Duh, we told you.
Find Skechers slip-ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
What was that? That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to handle the busy holiday season, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business comm at ooma.com/radio.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important. That's where we come in. SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning more often. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. That's Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. Plenty more to get to around free agency. The Patriots had a big day, Joe, as did the Chicago Bears. We were here when they signed Drew Dahlman, the best center along the interior of the offensive line, available in free agency. After we left, the Bears adding some pieces on the defensive side of the ball as well. Longtime successful DT for the Atlanta Falcons and a fan favorite, Grady Jarrett, who was released earlier in the day, quickly finds a new home in Chicago. And a guy out of Indianapolis that in his rookie contract in Indy, Dio Odangbo, had done some really good things. 14 starts last year in his fourth season with the Colts. Just 5 starts in his first 3 years in total, but a promising young player. It is clear, Joe, what Ben Johnson's priority has been in his first offseason as Bears head man, beef along both sides of the football.
Yeah, we talk about it. That's exactly how Detroit and Dan Campbell built that team from the inside out. It's the same at the college level as it is in terms of the NFL. When you have a solid offense and defensive lines, you're competitive immediately, and that's what Chicago needs to be. They're in a division that they're up against the likes of Jordan Love. They're up against Jared Goff. They're up and now against J.J. McCarthy, an elite wide receiver talent. You need to be able to sustain yourself, run the football, and keep more explosive offenses on the sidelines and protect your major asset, which is Caleb Williams. So you talk about it. He got sacked, 50-plus times last year. You can make the argument that, 60 of it was the offensive line. The other 40 was decision-making by Caleb Williams. At the end of the day, you can't have your quarterback stand upright, meaning you can't allow him to get hit 50, 60, 100 times a season with the likes of risking major injury. You're never going to compete. So this is a great start now for Chicago. Do they have elite wide receiver talent still outside of DJ Moore and what we've seen? We'll see. But again, this is a great start for Ben Johnson. He's going to put his blueprint on this team, and they're going to be competitive. Now, can that translate to immediate wins? We'll see, because it's going to be very difficult, at least going 4-2 within the division, Ben.
Yeah, it certainly is, Joe. Can't wait to see where the Bears do stack up based on win total and NFC North price for what we expect, of course, to be a very competitive division. Speaking of that division and trying to bolster the trenches, the Minnesota Vikings doing much of the same. They add defensively Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, and along the offensive line, one of the best right guards in the sport in Will Fries, who was a 7th-round pick out of Penn State by Indianapolis, now gets a 5-year, $88 million deal with the Vikings. That is what you do when you are rewarded. So Daniel Jones goes to Indianapolis. It's J.J. McCarthy's show. He'll have more protection up front with Fries.
Yeah, and you want to protect J.J. You want to run the football with Aaron Jones. He's coming back this year. He tailed off towards the end of the regular season. You want to have offensive balance. And I think Allen, too, in terms of that defense, knowing, again, how they sort of wore down towards the end of the regular season, you want to have more depth in terms of the D tackles and allow that linebacker core to be good in run support. And that's what Allen brings. Is Jonathan Allen going to be this elite talent? I don't believe so. But again, major depth now in the middle, hoping that this team could challenge the likes of the Detroit Lions. I think they have a pretty good defense and an above-average shot to challenge Detroit. Now it all hinges on McCarthy's performance in year number 2.
No doubt they bring back Byron Murphy as a corner as well. Safety Cam Bynum makes his way to Indianapolis. The Colts add Charvarius Ward as well. And Joe, on the first full day of free agency, not just acquisitions and deals that we have seen, some blockbuster trades. The Texans trade away Laramie Tunsil, their left tackle, who was in H-Town for 6 years, 5 times a Pro Bowler, to the Commanders. In return, they get a 2nd and 4th round pick next year, a 3rd rounder this year, along with a 7th rounder, so some draft capital. But for a quarterback in C.J. Stroud that regressed slightly in his sophomore season because he was constantly under pressure, Laramie Tunsil was pretty good at limiting that. 2nd best pressure rate among offensive linemen, only behind Tristan Wirfs in the last 3 years. I have no idea why the Texans made the trade. But good news for the Commanders. Jaden Daniels should be thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps Jaden Daniels in that rushing attack that really tailed off till the end of the regular season as well, right? So you protect Jaden Daniels, you add more depth to the offensive line. But, it's a head scratcher to your point for Houston. They get rid of Bobby Slowick, which seemed like a head scratcher, right? Even with the injuries that he had to deal with. They fire him. They get rid of Tunsil. It's more of a semi-house cleaning where D'Amico Ryans is really, set up, hopefully, with the right moves, not just in terms of free agency, but hopefully with the upcoming draft that, they solidify valuable positions. And again, to get a second and a fourth, not this year, but next year, that should help them. So it's a pretty good move as long as they can project C.J. Stroud, because the rushing attack with Joe Mixon is important as well to that offense.
Yeah. Stroud was sacked 52 times, second most for an individual quarterback all last year. Caleb Williams sacked 68 times, the only one more, and that was a lot more. But that's why the Bears are bolstering their O-line. The Texans looking to do the opposite because they also had a trade today of Kenyon Green to Philadelphia. In return, the Eagles send back one of the emotional leaders of the team, certainly defensively, in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the safety making his way to the Texans after winning a Super Bowl with the Birds. Another rather stunning move, perhaps, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed like a great fit in Philly. He seemed like a locker room guy, high-intensity guy, always around the football, but he goes to a very good secondary with a defensive-minded head coach. This elevates them yet again, not just in terms of the AFC South, but I think when you look at big picture, Gardner-Johnson's a huge upgrade to challenge, obviously, Lamar, Josh, and Pat Mahomes to potentially win an AFC championship. So a great move for Houston. We'll see how Philly responds in the offseason.
No doubt about it. You got to protect C.J. Stroud, though. That is priority number one. He's Joe Lisi. He'll continue the show on the other side of the break. I got to head out. Interviews in the studio. Lisi Guy brings you home. Up next on Football Full Circle.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and SiriusXM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Imagine combining the exciting investment opportunity of cryptocurrencies with the power of artificial intelligence to maximize your IRA, 401k, or other investment funds. Listen, if you're looking for ways to accelerate your retirement growth, Block Trust IRA has market-leading strategies and solutions for all levels of investors, from $1,000 to millions. And they partner with Bitcoin Magazine's #1 crypto trading fund in the world to maximize your returns. Plus, their team of IRA specialists is here to help you roll over your IRA or qualified retirement account to the new world of cryptocurrency investments. So make this free call right now to set up your account and learn more.
800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. That's 800-434-5313.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Back on Football Full Circle. Ben will be back tomorrow with Scott Wetzel. We left off talking about upcoming drafts, free agent moves. I want to go back to the signing of Justin Fields, just give my take and potentially what it means for the New York Jets. You talk about Justin Fields last year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I talked about a 4-2 overall record. 3 of the wins came on the road. He throws for 1,106 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Did have a completion percentage of 65% in the early part of the season. He did have a 300-yard performance in the loss to Indianapolis, had a 245-yard performance in the win over the LA Chargers. And I think that's what you're going to get out of Justin Fields moving forward with Aaron Glenn and this offensive staff. I believe this is a perfect fit for Justin Fields. And when you look at the Jet fan base that was all excited and enamored that Aaron Rodgers was coming to town a couple of years ago, it was AFC Championship or bust. Never lived up to expectations. The Jets and Aaron Rodgers were never a good fit. It was all about Aaron Rodgers and not about ultimately the team's success. You bring in a younger quarterback that's mobile. He's paired now with his former teammate in Garrett Wilson, where they performed at an elite level against great competition in college. And Justin Fields has the potential to really break out in terms of this offense. You have Breece Hall, you have Braylon Allen at the running back position. You have the ability to utilize Justin Fields in terms of the RPO game. This is a great addition for the New York Jets. I think people that are down on this don't see the big picture. Justin Fields is a winner. Justin Fields has been handcuffed by numerous organizations, including Chicago and Matt Eberflus, a garbage head coach that wanted to run the football more than he wanted to throw it. Mike Tomlin in this offense, led by Arthur Smith, that couldn't get it right towards the end of the regular season. And if you're making the comparison of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, that Russell Wilson dominated in terms of his time there, you're only looking at 2 games in particular against garbage competition, the New York Jets and the New York Giants last year, where Russell Wilson threw for over 250 yards. Outside of that, over the last 6 games of the regular season, Russell Wilson averaged 173.5 passing yards per game. He ran that offense into the ground. They never gave Justin Fields the opportunity to lead this team to potentially a playoff appearance, never gave the offense the ability to evolve around Justin Fields, and hopefully the New York Jets see the big picture. I think this is a great signing. I think whatever win total is tacked in terms of New Jersey or the Vegas markets on the New York Jets, they're 140 to 1 shot to win the Super Bowl. There got to be at least a 40 or a 50 to 1 shot to win the AFC. If you tack a 6.5, 7.5 win total on the New York Jets, I'm going to go over. I would even take a make playoff bet to the yes at plus money. We'll see whatever they post over the next couple of weeks. They do on FanDuel right now have some prop bets about some of the additions. Devontae Adams moving on to the LA Rams paired with Matt Stafford. You look at Devontae's number this year from a prop bet perspective, it's 925.5 at minus 114 either way. Matt Stafford, even when he was healthy with Cooper Kupp, never really targeted Cooper Kupp the way he would target Puka Nacua. Will he target Devontae Adams enough to get 925 yards in that offense? That's the hope. You paid him $30+ million. The hope is that Devontae Adams can be a 1,000-yard wide receiver and take the pressure and double teams off of Puka Nacua. That should open up the rushing attack with Kyron Williams. It's not a bad look when you look at Devontae Adams in limited action with Aaron Rodgers, 1,000-yard wide receiver, and he stepped up towards the end of the regular season. That's the hope with LA in that matchup. You look at some of the rushing yards for Saquon Barkley this year, 12 rushing touchdowns, plus 105 for Saquon, minus 200 for Jalen Hurts. So Jalen Hurts' number, minus 200, Saquon, plus 105. I like that value for Saquon. If you want to take a shot on Barkley to lead the NFL with over 2,106 rushing yards, a 33 to 1 number. I don't think he gets there, but potentially over his number of 2,000, that's a 16 to 1 shot. We'll be back tomorrow for Danny Oler's Ben Stevens I'm Lisi. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Football Full Circle.
Now you've done it. You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.